Afternoon. Haven't seen a crowd like this in here since the last law day I had here. I won't even mention how long ago that was. Usually, when we talk about a captive audience, I'm talking about people in handcuffs and shackles, but we have different kind of captive audience today. I would like to welcome you to the investiture of Jason Lamb as the Circuit Judge for the 12th Judicial Circuit. It's great to see you all here. Before I make a few remarks, which are remarked on the program, but I'm going to make them anyway, I want to introduce the judges, at least the judges that I know are in the courtroom. First, the remaining judges of the Circuit Court and Banc for the 12th Circuit, besides Judge Lamb, is Judge Linda Hamlett, Associate Circuit Judge of Audrain County. If you want to wave, rave, stand up, do a card. Judge Kelly Broniec, Associate Circuit Judge of Montgomery County and also Judge of the Juvenile Division. Judge Michael Wright, Associate Circuit Judge of Warren County and the Judge of the Treatment Courts for the Circuit. And Judge Richard Scheibe, also Associate Circuit Judge of Warren County. And we also have over on my right, to your left, Edward Hodge, my immediate predecessor as Circuit Judge of the 12th Circuit. Judge Dean Dankelson, the Circuit Judge of the 29th Circuit in Jasper County. I think he's probably made the longest trip today. Judge Richter is not here. Don't see him. And finally, Judge Duane Benton of the United States Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit. I suspect that everyone here today believes that the voters in all three counties of the circuit did the right thing in electing Jason Lamb as Circuit Judge. I couldn't agree more. I want to take just a minute or two to explain, well, maybe three, to explain why. When I began law school at the University of Missouri, shortly after the invention of the printing press, there were fewer women students in the law school than there are women lawyers in this courtroom right now. 6, I believe, was the number. No one at that time in the classes would think of wearing anything like blue jeans or shorts or t-shirts to class. Some of us wore a suit or coat and tie, wore a coat and tie in class at least a day or two a week. We had Saturday classes. Fortunately, they were over by noon, so you wouldn't be late for the football game. But it was kind of a different world. In the middle of my 3rd semester, I had the opportunity to receive an invitation from Uncle Sam to go to the induction center in St. Louis to see if I fitted an olive green uniform. They did let me finish the semester, but then I disappeared for 2.5 years from law school and from Columbia. 2.5 years later, I showed up in August, a few days before the semester was supposed to start, to see what I needed to do to get back into school. And when I walked into Tate Hall, I had a pretty major cultural shock. Because roaming the hall were people with long hair, those are men I'm talking about, wearing sandals, shorts, t-shirts, hauling backpacks. I thought for a moment the law school had moved somewhere else and hadn't told me. But I went back to Jack Edwards' office. I know some of you know Jack Edwards. Asked him what I needed to do to get back into school. The bureaucracy was not quite as big as it was then. He said, "Oh, sign up for some classes." Okay, and I did, and the rest, I guess, is history. But that brief cultural shock that I experienced coming back to school was just the leading edge of the enormous changes this country has seen in the past half-century, some good, and increasingly many of them bad. And the courts have had to adapt to those changes. Last Friday, we had the last meeting of the transition teams that Jason had put together. We had to put it off a week due to Judge Dalton's untimely death. And a couple hours into that meeting, Lou Leonardi there piped up and said, "You guys aren't judges anymore, you're social workers," is basically what it amounted to. And there's a lot of truth to that. The judges had to change the way they work because of changing conditions in the country and in this area. Therapeutic courts are the order of the day. When I first took office as Circuit Judge in 2001, I was already sick after 22 years as Associate Circuit Judge in Warren County, dealing with the same people over and over. again, sometimes the second generation, and later on the third generation. We needed to do something different, and I felt for some time we needed a drug court, so I applied for a drug court planning initiative grant in 2002. We received the grant to train some people to start a drug court in Warren County, and we did that. About a year later, at the end of 2003, we had a drug court going. By that time, Jason Lamb had been prosecuting attorney in Audrain County for a little over a year, I guess. And that's when I found out that he wasn't willing to sit back and wait for the drug court or anything else to come to him if he thought it would do some good. He called me up in 2004 and said, "Do you have any objection if we start a drug court in Audrain County?" I said, "No, go for it." And he and Judge Hamlett got together, put together a wonderful team of people, studied how to start a drug court and got one going. It took a while, a year or so, to get it going, but that drug court was started well before we would have gotten the drug court extended from Warren County. And that was Jason's doing primarily. I was a little upset when he went off to be the executive director of the Missouri Office of Prosecution Services because I hated to lose him as prosecuting attorney, who had kept in touch off and on over the years. And I've been told by multiple people what a wonderful job, what a terrific job he did as executive director of MOPS. He was one of the prime architects of the new criminal code that's been in effect for a couple of years now, and that was a major achievement. I don't know how else to describe that. And surprisingly enough, a couple of days ago, well, Jason developed a reputation, I think, in Jefferson City that stands out. And 2 days ago, my wife got a totally unsolicited compliment from one of my sons, who's the chief of staff for his third state senator. And he texted to my wife yesterday the following. He says, "Jason is a good man and will be a good judge. We can all stand behind." I couldn't agree more. I better shut up because there's other people that have something to say today. Steve Hodge has some welcoming remarks he wishes to make.
So first of all, on behalf of the Audrain County Commission and all the elected officials in Audrain County, we'd like to welcome you here to the historic Audrain County Courthouse. Judge, I think this is the biggest crowd we've ever had in here where no one was sporting lingerie or jammies as business casual. So, it's a vast.
Couldn't agree more with you.
Also want to welcome members from the city and other members from the business community, family and friends who are all here today. It's a special day. We take our history serious here in Audrain County. As you can tell, we have portraits, thank you Judge Hodge, of different judges that have practiced in this courtroom. We have other locations for esteemed attorneys that have worked here. And Judge Sutherland and I have talked several times about this courtroom in particular. We believe it's one of the most beautiful in the state of Missouri. And it's beautiful for a lot of reasons. One of those is that this is where you come for justice. Whether you're a victim or the accused, this is where justice is doled out and outcomes that change people's lives are made here daily. That's why the people that sit in front of me and behind me take this job so seriously, and we should take it so seriously. So on behalf of all of those here in Audrain County, we want to welcome you here and enjoy this day of celebration and a new chapter in the 12th Judicial Circuit. Thank you very much.
Next, I'll call on Lou Leonati for the invocation and Senator Jeannie Riddle for a motion.
What Judge Sutherland failed to say is each speaker, even though they are a lawyer, is limited to 5 minutes.
You've used a minute.
So before we start, we would like to observe a moment of silence out of respect for the Honorable Wesley Dalton, our presiding judge, who passed away unexpectedly 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Been asked to give the invocation. I must tell you this is copied from the Catholic Book of Blessings. This was the blessing written by Archbishop John Carroll in 1789 for the second inauguration of George Washington as President of the United States. And it's used for all publicly elected officials. Almighty and eternal God, you have revealed your glory to all nations. God of power and might, wisdom and justice, through you, authority is rightly administered, laws are enacted, judgment is decreed. We pray for Jason Lamb, our newly elected presiding judge, and all other elected civil officials who are entrusted to guard our political welfare. May they be enabled by your powerful protection to discharge their duties with honesty and ability. We likewise commend to your unbounded mercy all citizens of the state of Missouri and of the United States, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your holy law. May we be preserved in union and that peace which the world cannot give. And after enjoying the blessings of this life, be admitted to those which are eternal. We pray to you, who are our Lord and God, forever and ever. Amen. Senator?
Thank you, Lou. Now, he gave a Catholic prayer, so I guess I give a Baptist devotion. That means it takes a little longer, right? Today, as we come together to celebrate and honor Judge Jason Lamb on this important occasion, I am reminded that all power on heaven and earth comes from God, our Father. In Proverbs chapter 8, verses 15 and 16, King Solomon writes, "By me kings reign, rulers issue decrees that are just. By me princes govern and nobles all who rule on earth." Whoever is in power, whether it is a judge, a state senator, or a county commissioner, is by no accident. It is by God's grand design that princes govern, nobles rule, kings reign, judges render decisions, and laws are enacted. Solomon's desire was for God to give him wisdom so he could fairly rule his people. As elected officials, each of us daily needs God's wisdom because our decisions directly affect the lives of each and every one of our constituents. In Romans chapter 13, verse 1, the Apostle Paul writes, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority that which God has not established." The authorities that exist have been established by God. Those of us in elected office are here because God ordained it. I pray that each of us find comfort in these verses, and it is by God's grand design that brought us Judge Lamb. I pray that you, Judge Lamb, find strength in knowing that the all-powerful and wise creator of the universe chose you for this position. May your decisions be made with the Lord giving you wisdom and discernment. God bless you as you serve.
Right, Senator, Baptists are a little longer. This time I'd ask Evan, who's not already standing to stand. Jackson Lamb and Brooks Lamb are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kristen Arnold, the current president of the Audrain County Bar, is going to say a few words.
Your Honors, Court and Banc, fellow lawyers, and ladies and gentlemen, what a happy afternoon it is here today at the Audrain County Courthouse. On behalf of the officers and members of the Audrain County Bar Association, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank the court for inviting the Audrain County Bar Association to participate in this investiture of Judge Jason Lamb. I'm happy to be a part of this ceremony and speak on behalf of the local legal community. Today, as we embark on the beginning of his tenure on the bench, I'm certain that Judge Lamb's service as a judge in this circuit will be defined by the standards of excellence, devotion to duty, and a sense of honor and integrity. In this role, as in each of the positions he has held over the years, Jason will prove his steadfast commitment to acting as a steward of the law and a servant of those whom it protects and empowers. I am sure that every decision that Jason renders will be grounded in the law, bound by the weight of precedent, and consistent with the finest traditions of the justice system he has served. I am certain that in every case, in every instance, and in every endeavor, he will do what is necessary and what is right in order to build a safer, stronger, and more just society. I believe he will be an advocate for the cause of justice and for the 12th Circuit as a whole. Jason is a past president of the Audrain County Bar Association. He and his wife Vanessa are active local members in our community, and Audrain County is their home. With that being said, on behalf of the entire Audrain County Bar Association, we are so happy to have a member of our local legal community bearing the title of the 12th Circuit Presiding Judge, and the Bar Association looks forward to the circuit's future with Judge Lamb. Thank you.
Now we come to the potentially dangerous part of the program. Some reflection.
Turn the clock
I'll
off.
see you first. No, the clock stays on.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the bar, all this fine judiciary, I've never seen so many robes in one room since the last time I was at the hotel spa. I am very honored. I'm very pleased to introduce my good friend, to talk about it for a minute. In this trying economic and political time, we have recently elected a beacon of civility, learning, and higher thought. That's Jason Lamb. Someone with the ability to work through the most difficult of circumstances and find a path enlightened by truth and justice. He didn't pay me to make these remarks. I've known Jason for a very long time. Mary and I welcomed Jason into our practice. I consider Jason a friend and a colleague. And I think for me, that's saying something. Jason is hardworking, but he can also have a great time. He's a loyal friend, a demanding yet understanding boss, and anybody who's worked for him knows what I'm talking about. He's a loving husband and father, a committed member of his church, a strong leader. He has participated in the formation of a new legal theory, law, regulation, placing him at the forefront in the legal field. He's a scholar of history and legal theory who helped rethink a worn-out criminal code, revitalize that portion of our legal system. Jason Lamb is a man who has an incredible memory. I would say I did. An understanding of history that provides a powerful foresight and a strong understanding of the law. Jason's high school years were formative. He was my friend Kurt's son. Still is. Jason quickly became my friend. He was my student in the YMCA Youth in Government, and anybody who's participated or touched that program knows Jason set the standard in Audrain County. He became appointed judge, the first one in our delegation, and then he was elected to statewide office. Attorney General, again, the first one for our delegation. He was a cross-country star. He was both a musician and leader in high school and in marching Mizzou. And if you remember his performance, it was always dazzling. In fact, Jason's oldest son, you're laughing at this. Jason's oldest son has just returned from his first convention, I understand. Congratulations, Jason. Jason started working in the legal trenches, and I mean that in the most literal sense of the word. In our basement, we called it the dungeon. He cleaned out files, some of which may have been 100 or more years old. It took him all summer, and he built a good set of muscles carrying those old documents and nasty papers upstairs. I watched Jason excel, truly excel through college at Mizzou, studying history, leading marching Mizzou. Jason decided he was going to go to law school at Tulane University. Tulane is really an outstanding school. Graduated the likes of Michael DeBakey, the heart doctor, quite famous. Douglas Hurley, an astronaut who's been in space twice. David Philo, the founder of Yahoo. Newt Gingrich, some of you may know who he is, the politician. I worried that Jason, however, had entered Hotel California. After all, New Orleans is also the home of Mardi Gras, Southern Comfort, and Bourbon Street. Jason never, as far as I can tell, never wavered from his path. Mary and I were so excited about Jason's graduation that we ventured to the Crescent City to help him celebrate. And it was quite a celebration. We took Jason and some of his high school and college friends who had attended the graduation to a place called Pat O'Brien's, semi-famous. I think it was Jason's first time. At least, I think that's what he said. But I could have been mistaken. After graduation, Jason worked for Judge Benton. But he eventually, and it wasn't quick enough for Mary and me, returned to town. When Jason returned to Mexico, Mary and I welcomed him into our practice. Jason gained a solid foundation in the practice of law, practicing in the areas of domestic relations, estate planning, probate, criminal defense, business law, contracts. He worked on some lawsuits, and he did some administrative matters with me. He tried several cases and argued a case to the Court of Appeals. I think that was in your first year, wasn't it? Eventually, Jason left our place, to our chagrin, because he was just starting to make money. And he decided to run for prosecuting attorney for Audrain County. And for those of you who remember that election, he won that one by a landslide also. At least that's how I recall. During the same time, we had quite an office, and as in any law office, the ladies really run it. We just worked there. During this same time, I watched Jason's love for Vanessa grow, and I shared their wedding day. I was the best man, and I was honored to do that. And I watched as Jason went from et al., as we say, to et ux. Before that, the courting of Vanessa was a process carefully observed in our office. As the bar plan has recommended, we had a weekly docket meeting where we went over every single case, no matter how boring or repetitive. The last item every week lifted everyone's spirits. It just said, Vanessa. Jason,
You're going to get yourself in serious trouble here.
I'm almost done for this. Jason never wanted to give up any of his stories, but as good legal secretaries, the staff pressed him at length until he gave them up to everyone's satisfaction. And as you all know, the rest is history. It was during this time that Jason also dove into our community, and our community in a form of service. He's been everything. President of the YMCA. He was president of the Audrain County Bar Association, as already pointed out. Were you president of the Audrain County Historical Society, or did you just serve on that for the entire lifetime? President. He's been everything. Over the years, he's been active in several other activities, little ones like the Presser Hall Restoration Society, Northeast Community Service Agency, Audrain County Crisis Intervention, the Mexico JCs and the Rotary Club, and I'm pretty sure I've left some things off. I think that there are some formative events and formative people also who need to take credit, one of whom is not here. While in law school in New Orleans, Jason worked for a friend of mine, Lynn Lugar, who was probably the most powerful trial lawyer I have ever met. I worked with her during the asbestos litigation, but she does nothing but high-profile, very difficult, very complicated cases. Jason worked for Lynn, and I simply can't imagine the education that he got there. I'm envious because of the quality of Lynn and her practice. She showed Jason a side of the law and made him a better attorney, probably than any other person I know, save one, Judge Benton. I don't really want to say cover this here. Duane Benton is probably one of the most balanced and intellectual minds I know, and I can only imagine the lessons he gave Jason. Yet, there is more to Jason than just background, community service, and hard work and learning. He has talents that most of you do not know about. I met Jason when he was about 11 at the 4th of July party here in Mexico. He and his dad had just won the talent contest by putting on a father-son Elvis impersonation. Which, by the way, was worthy of winning. He sung and can sing any Elvis song you can pick. And he does it with pretty good ability. He can recite poetry and prose, no question. He knows the words and the melody to just about every song, and probably the performer as well to every song you can imagine from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe the 90s. Jason is a scholar on the Civil War and will debate any battle you wish. And he'll spend an entire Saturday morning doing that. And you feel invigorated from the discussion. Because of all of this extensive knowledge, we asked Jason at one point to be on our Trivial Pursuits team, of which we won handily. In fact, I think we were invited not to come back if we had Jason as captain of our team. These stories reflect on the complexity of Jason. Those of you who know him well know what I'm talking about. His years as student, entertainer, leader, he babysat my children. He was an intern, attorney, a scholar, and prosecutor, have formed a man I would call righteous. and I don't know many that I would give that title. Righteous in the sense of morally right, justifiable, caring, and willing to do what is required to follow and enforce the law. Exactly what we want for a judge. The process of judicial election has been very political, as you all know. Every election is. They're always contentious. There's always a story. There's always something lingering in the background. That time has passed. With this election and this auspicious event, Jason, now you have to take off the hat of politics, and you have to don the robe of the judiciary. And I get to say a couple more words simply because he asked me to stand up here. And I'm a lawyer. I'm standing at a podium. Occasionally open another book, and I know you already do. I don't have to tell you. The Bible. I'm going to ask you to judge with the brilliance of Solomon and the compassion of Jesus, for the law can be a mighty sword. Use your life lessons. I know that your near eidetic memory will not let you forget these lessons of your life, nor the facts of any case you hear. Use them. Do not be afraid to call upon your mentors when the time calls for it. I still have a chessboard and a bottle of wine available in my living room, always, and I know many others do, most of which are standing around me or in this room. Do not warp what is clearly true. Do not bend the law. At the same time, do not be afraid to criticize, correct, and modify when your mind and your heart say you must. God has blessed you with many talents, a clear memory, patience, scholarship, an understanding of history, which is unusual, deep insight and brilliance. Use those gifts to your best ability. Congratulations, my friend.
Next is Kevin Hamlett. Kevin, Paul, use 5 minutes of your time.
I'm requesting 3 with a 2-minute warning.
All right. You got it.
I was instructed brevity was key. I guess Paul wasn't. I was also told, don't be funny. Evidently you heard that part. I started trying cases in this courtroom in 1984 with Tom Osborne. And I don't know how many jury trials I've tried, maybe 100. And pretty far into that career, along came Jason Lane. And I was so used to dealing with the likes of Tim Joyce and Tom Osborne, where we would just, like a couple of mountain goats, would just back off to 2 different sides of the courtroom and then bash each other in the head until one of us would go to their knees. And I thought, well, here comes Jason Lamb, went to a really fine school, comes from a really fine family. I'll bet he's really naive. But I remember the first time I was trying a case with him, and I went at him like the mountain goat. And he just goes, "Ole." And I'm sitting there thinking, where did he learn that? I mean, this should be easy. I grew up on the mean streets of Ladonia. But then I remembered he'd gone to law school in New Orleans, which I'm sure when you would get used books, sometimes they'd have bullet holes in them. But he was incredibly prepared. and very smart. And you usually don't see those two things together in a trial lawyer. Usually the really smart ones don't prepare so hard. And the ones that do over-prepare aren't as brilliant as Jason was. And I knew immediately that Jason was going to be over-preparing because I think we only tried 2 jury cases together. Is that right, Jason? Was it 3? Was it more than that?
A little bit more.
I only remember the 2. But in both those cases, they were lost causes. But I learned a long time ago that there is no such thing as a case that can't be won or a case that can't be lost. And I had these 2 clients, and both of them were law enforcement officers, now that I think about it, who they just had these amazing cases against them. And they didn't want to make a deal. They refused, we want to go to trial. It's okay. That's your prerogative. And Jason would call me up and he'd say, "What's wrong with you? Why are you trying this case?" It's because my client doesn't want to plead guilty. But what about the DNA? Well, I'll take that up with your expert. Well, okay. And then he'd call me back and we cleared. Now, seriously, what approach are you taking on this case? Jason, no approach. I'm just going to try to destroy your witnesses. I don't have any other choice. And this happened a couple, and then we had another one where the guy had written a confession, for crying out loud, not solicited by the police. He'd written the confession and hidden it somewhere where someone who shouldn't find it found it. And Jason's like, "Why is this guy going to trial?" Well, Jason, he doesn't want to plead guilty. "Well, what about the confession?" I said, "Well, I guess you're going to take that up with my client if he testifies." But he just couldn't understand that all of his preparation and all of the facts to his benefit and all the advantages that the state had in those 2 cases, still sometimes you just have to try the cases. And he came to learn that. And he was very, very good. And I only remember the 2 cases. I know this much. I have 33 years of those.
The bad memories fade.
True. What was your name? I've got 34 of those month-at-a-glance calendars that I kept. And I can tell you where I was at what time on January 5th, 1985. And that came in handy a few times. But I would go through and I'd try to look at all the trials, and sometimes I can't make out my own handwriting because of the coffee stains and whatever other disturbances there may be. And I could only find 2 cases that we tried, but I knew that he beat me on both of those. Evidently, he beat me on 4 of them. I don't remember. But I can say this. Looking through those calendars, I can't find any one lawyer that ever beat me that I didn't beat at least once. Even Lully and I got beat once. We tried 3 cases. I beat him the first one. He defeated me the second 2, or the second one and the third one, and the third one was by knockout. So, but you were one of the best trial attorneys I've seen come through here, and that career was so brief that I can't imagine what you'd have been like if you'd stayed at it. But you had to go up to a bigger weight class, go down to Jeff City and take on a bigger foe. But I can say this, intellectual honesty is something that Jason exhibited every time I spoke to him. And it's very easy, especially for lawyers. We're all, you got to argue both sides of the case. We can talk ourselves into almost anything. But, and by the way, I'm no longer a lawyer. I'm married to Kevin Hamlett now. but always, you could see the you off the path. He knew where you were going. Even, and I tried to tell him when he wouldn't believe me. He prepared for 4 or 5 angles that I hadn't thought of. But I have to say, in the courtroom, he was a handful. And as a judge, he's going to have his handle on the courtroom. And I said I'd be brief, I lied. Less is more. That's something I learned from Frank Conley. Judge Frank Conley, who was circuit judge forever in Boone County. And if he looked every bit like a tall, ramrod straight, white-haired, well-groomed, clean-shaven Moses. And he would occasionally smite people from the bench. But the thing I remember the most about him is so few words. It was very common to sit there and you go, commence, or proceed, one of the two, proceed. And then the next thing he'd say is, denied, and then he'd read the next case. Some of the wisest words I ever heard. But at any rate, I'm very proud of you, and I'm very disappointed that I will not be practicing in front of you. Almost as disappointed as I was when I found out I wasn't going to get to try another case against you. God bless you, Godspeed.
Eric's on.
If you've spent much time around Jason Lamb, you know that he often speaks in aphorisms. You know what those are, those pithy little sayings that stick in your head. For example, if Jason's worried about something that a small thing might lead to something bigger, he'll say, well, that's just the camel's nose under the tent. Or if he thinks it'll lead to something really bad, he'll tell you that that's the beginning of the slippery slope. If he's talking about something really good, like a really good, efficient way to handle something, he'll mention killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And if something is just way too easy, might talk about taking candy from a baby. Not that I think Jason really has it in himself to actually take candy from a baby, ever. But I think my favorite Jasonism, as I'm going to call these things from here on out, is this saying that if you're not at the table, you'll end up on the table, right? It's his way of saying that if you're not in the room where the negotiations are occurring and the decisions are being made, you may end up being victimized by those decisions. That is, you'll either wind up on the operating table or on the dinner table. I'm not sure which he ever meant. I just knew you didn't want to be on that table. Well, Jason, for the next few minutes, I'm sorry to say that you don't get to be at the table. For just a bit, you're going to have to be on the table. I mean, this is my last chance to speak freely without the threat of being held in contempt, so I'm going to enjoy it while I can. You see, I know a few things about Jason. For example, there's that time when 4 prosecutors in Washington, D.C. wound up in the back seat of what was supposed to be an Uber XL. You know, those are the 6-seat, the big Uber cars. This one turned out to be, I think, a Honda Civic. But the truth is, that's about the only embarrassing story I know about Jason. If you know Jason, you know the reason that I don't know many embarrassing stories about him is that he is unfailingly genuine and an honest gentleman. Jason's not the type of person who's going to do something embarrassing. He thinks too far ahead. He cares too much about the people around him and his own reputation. He's just too good to put himself in a position where either he or the people around him might be embarrassed. At least that was true until today, because for some completely indecipherable reason, he asked me to speak at his investigation. Seriously though, when Jason asked me to speak at this ceremony, I was honored to, because Jason Lamb is one of the finest people I've ever met. Since January 1, 2003, just over 16 years ago, Jason has spent every working day and many weekends and evenings pursuing justice, protecting victims of crime, and improving the criminal justice system. The people of the state of Missouri are fortunate that Jason decided to dedicate his time and considerable talent to that endeavor. As Audrain County's prosecuting attorney, and then as executive director of the Missouri Association of Prosecuting Attorneys and the Missouri Office of Prosecution Services, including a stint leading all of the prosecutor coordinators across this nation as the president of the National Association of Prosecutor Coordinators, Jason has worked tirelessly to achieve justice for victims and those accused of crimes. You just heard me use the phrase "work tirelessly" in the pursuit of justice, and some of you might think that's just my use of a well-worn phrase. But there are others of you in this room who know that I actually mean what I say. I see Judge and former Jasper County Prosecutor Dean Dankelson. I see Judge and former Warren County Prosecutor Mike Wright. I believe that, yes, Tim Lomar, St. Charles County Prosecutor, is here in the room. The reason we know that when I say the words "Jason works tirelessly" is that we have been on the receiving end of text messages at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night relating to some new piece of legislation or some news story or some court case that has come out. You may laugh, but we actually received those text messages. And the reason we did is because Jason's commitment to advancing the cause of justice wasn't just a 9-to-5 job for him. Jason cares about doing what is right. It's his passion. I could spend hours with you talking about the things he's done to improve Missouri's criminal justice system. But don't worry, I'm not going to keep you here for those hours. Instead, I'll just spend a couple of minutes talking about just one thing that Judge Sutherland has already mentioned that highlights what he has done to make things better in the state of Missouri. When Jason Lamb began as Audrain County Prosecutor, Missouri's criminal code had been around for about 25 years without any effort at a comprehensive revision. Over those decades, it had been added to, it had been amended, it had been tinkered with in ways that made it cumbersome, duplicative, and sometimes even contradictory. In addition, 25 years is just in and of itself a long time. The world had changed dramatically since 1979 when that code was enacted. But undertaking a revision of the entire Missouri Criminal Code is a mammoth task. That's probably the reason why nobody had done it for 25 years, but that didn't deter Jason Lamb. He led the effort to write the first new criminal code in more than 2.5 decades. And just the efforts to write it took 5 or 6 years in and of itself, but Jason co-chaired the Missouri Bar Committee filled with prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, law professors, and others who worked out all of the kinks in that code. But he wasn't done yet because then he had to get it passed by the legislature. That took 2 years. And that's what happens when a bill is more than 1,000 pages long. But it finally passed in 2014. Even after it passed, Jason wasn't done because he then took the lead with a few other people, educating prosecutors, defense lawyers, and others about those changes before that new code took effect in 2017. Leading a team of other lawyers who toured the state, making sure everyone was familiar with those many changes. While many people had a hand in that criminal code revision and can justifiably take some credit for its creation and passage, I firmly believe this: that criminal code would have never come into existence. That revision would have never happened without Jason Lamb. It's a historic accomplishment that will benefit Missourians greatly for long after Jason Lamb is retired off the bench of this great circuit or from anything else that he chooses to do. That's just one of many examples I could give you of truly significant things that Jason has done to improve Missouri's criminal justice system over the past 16 years. And I believe Jason will continue those efforts as a judge because it's ingrained in him. The truth is this: when Jason dons the robe as a circuit judge in just a few minutes, it'll be the next step in a distinguished career, but actually not that much different than what he's done for the last 16 years. Because in reality, prosecutors are more like judges than anyone else who ever enters a courtroom. Prosecutors are the only lawyers who ever enter a courtroom whose duty is not just to win the case. Every lawyer, except a prosecutor, has one job when they step into a courtroom, and that is to win the case on behalf of the client. For prosecutors, the job is fundamentally different in a very, very important way. The prosecutor's job is to do justice. Often, that means working hard to convict a person who has committed a crime. Almost as often, it means standing up for victims of crime, ensuring that their constitutional rights as victims are protected, and trying to balance the scales of justice for them. But it also means safeguarding the rights of the accused and exonerating the innocent. Like hundreds of his prosecutor colleagues across Missouri and thousands across this nation, Jason cares deeply about all of those things. He was a servant of justice for the last 16 years of his career, just as he will continue to be a servant of justice as a circuit judge. Jason Lamb could be making millions in some big law firm. I know, I started my career at one of those great big law firms, and I worked with a lot of great lawyers. I now work with many excellent prosecutors, but I will tell you this: I have never worked with a lawyer who is better than Jason Lamb. As you know, it's customary for lawyers to refer to judges as Your Honor. It's a sign of respect, and often it is deserved, though sometimes perhaps not. Lawyers sometimes utter it through gritted teeth or with a smirk, at least in their heads, if not on their faces. But I really can't think of anybody else more deserving of the term Your Honor than Jason Lamb. So I end with this. Congratulations.
Time for Judge Duane Benton to administer the oath.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if I may, I want to take one moment to say that I remember the 20-something-year-old just out of Mizzou, starting at Tulane Law School, who came to me to talk about an internship. And he interned in my office. I was in on the Supreme Court of Missouri. He did a great job as an intern. In his second year at Tulane, I said, come back and clerk with me. He came back and clerked. I've been a judge for 28 years. I've had about 100 clerks. And Jason's at the very top of the list. And I have clerks who are on the Federal Communications Commission. They're a commissioner on the Federal Communications Commission. I have a clerk who's a managing partner of a DC law firm. By the way, he's making several million. I have all kinds of clerks, but the very top of my 100 clerks that I've had is Jason Lamb. So now, Jason, if you'll assemble, let's administer the oath and make it official. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jason H. Lamb,
I, Jason H. Lamb,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and that I will faithfully demean myself
in the office of Circuit Judge
in the office of Circuit Judge
for the 12th Judicial Circuit.
for the 12th Judicial Circuit.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
First challenge has been Jason, come on. Not sure how what we're gonna do with the chair here, but we'll figure something out. I just want to say a couple of things. Again. A judge much wiser than I once said that judges are of necessity surrounded by people who tell them how wonderful they are. The minute you believe it, you're lost. The other thing I'm going to say, I actually took out of my remarks, but with all the other speakers tonight, I can't avoid it. Every 6 months, in June and December, you will get a form from the court administrator's office called Survey of Cases Under Advisement, on which you're supposed to list any case that you have had under advisement for more than 6 months. I've never had one of those, but some judges have. I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, they copied all, do you remember when they did that? Maybe 15 years ago, OSCA decided they're going to copy all the ones that judges actually listed cases that are under advisement more than 6 months, and there are only 8 or 10 or 12 judges that had that. But one of them struck me, and that was from John Brackman, who was then circuit judge in the 20th Circuit. John was kind of a showman in his own right. I love John. But he had a case that he had listed as being under advisement for 5 years. 5 years. And over on the right side, you have to put the reason. And his reason was justice versus law. It's your job to do justice under the law. Congratulations.
My favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life. And at the end of that movie, the main character, George Bailey, observes that no man is alone who has friends. Looking across this room today, I couldn't feel any less alone, or not alone rather, than I do now. Some thank yous are in order. Judge Sutherland, thank you for those wonderful words of advice that you just gave me. Thank you for your tenure as the circuit judge in this circuit, who I had the honor and privilege of practicing in front of and learning so much from. Judge Benton, thank you for your wonderful mentorship and leadership to me as a young law student, as a young law clerk right out of law school, and as a continued friend over the years. Every lawyer should be fortunate to have at least one judge who can be an excellent mentor to them and guide them in their career. I've been fortunate enough to have the two of you. Thank you, gentlemen. Steve, Lou, Senator Riddle, thank you so much for being a part of this ceremony today. Thank you for the kind words. And thank you for the wonderful friendship we've enjoyed over the years and the wonderful friendship that I know that we'll continue to have working together in many capacities over the coming years. Paul, Kevin, Eric, gentlemen, your words do me honor. Your friendship does me honor. I hope that I can be lucky enough to continue to have your friendship for many, many years to come, and to set an example for my sons of what good men can be with each other. Thank you, gentlemen. Kristen, members of the bar, thank you for your message. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your camaraderie over the years. I am very honored and pleased to be your judge, having come from your ranks, and the collegiality that we have shared together. I appreciate it. My friends of the Missouri Association of Prosecuting Attorneys, Missouri Office of Prosecution Services who are here today, thank you. Thank you for being a part of my life for the past 10 years, the good work we've done together. Keep up the good work. Everyone in this room, I look out. I see so many faces from my childhood, my teenage years, college. I returned to the practice of law here at home, being your prosecutor, being your friend, neighbors, loved ones, family, this community, and not just Audrain County, but the new friends, the wider community that we've gained in Montgomery County and in Warren County. Thank you all. Thank you for being a part of this day. Thank you for your interest in the justice system. One of the things that Judge Sutherland always said to a jury, which I intend to keep saying, is that this is your courtroom. It's your tax dollars that pay the bills of this joint, that pay the salaries of the people who work here, keep the lights on. This is your courtroom. It's your justice system. I'm going to do my best to make you proud of it. I look across the community, I see faces of people who've been influential to me over the years. Susan Atkins, my 4th grade teacher. Up until I married my wife, she was my favorite teacher. We'll get to that in a minute. Larry Weber, my first boss. Worked for him after school and on summer breaks at his pharmacy. Much like George Bailey again, learning those small town lessons of public service and what it means to treat people with respect and courtesy and a foundation and a hard work ethic. Just like George Bailey, as a kid, I'd run uptown to see my dad when he was the director of the county library. And I'd ask him for advice. Thanks, Dad. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being the role model for me that leads to my most important job, which is what I want to say to my boys. Jackson, Brooks, I'm proud of you. You did a great job with that pledge. Awesome. I love you guys more than anything. You're the most important thing in the world to me. And I want you to know, no matter what title I have, what job I have, my most important job is being your dad. That's number one. And finally, to my wife, Vanessa, I love you. I love you so much. From the day I met you, you've been my best friend, my best advisor. You've never steered me wrong. Thank you for everything. One of the best pieces of advice she gave me before we talked today was to keep it short. So I'm going to. We're going to wrap it up because there's a reception somewhere across the street. I can't promise many things to you because I'm not allowed to. I can't promise how I'm going to rule on cases. I can't promise what I'll do with certain individuals, certain cases, certain types of cases. That's the whole point of the system, is judges are supposed to be neutral, and everybody's supposed to get a fair shake when they walk into this room. But I can promise you one thing, and I'll do it. You have laid a great deal of trust in me today, the public trust. And I promise you that I will take that trust. I will gladly embrace it. And I will nurture it. I will foster it. And I will care for it. And I will return that trust to you with fairness, with equity, with common sense, and with justice. I thank God for the blessings that He's bestowed upon my family and I. I thank God for each and every one of you and the influence that you've had on my life up until now. And going forward, I pray to Him every day for the wisdom to do what is right and what is fair and what is just. I'd like to ask Lou Leonati to close us with a benediction.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
This is getting pretty serious. These two little young men go to St. Brendan. Did you think this was going to last longer than Mass this morning? A couple of thoughts for the lawyers in the room. I appreciate the fact that we come here to win for our clients. I appreciate the fact that we are to be zealous. I ask you to take it to a higher plane. The judge has to be able to trust each of us. Has to be able to know if we cite a case, if we give him a rule, if we tell him such a thing has happened, that is in fact true. The greatest thing that you can have is integrity with the court. We have a new court. Value that. I've had a judge come up to me and say, I got reversed, Leonati. What were you doing? And we did. The new rule was established. He didn't blame me for not advising him correctly, but they remember. When you reverse them, Duane, and so do I. So think about that as we start down a new path with our new presiding judge. The closing prayer. This is Abraham Lincoln's prayer for a judge. May the Almighty grant that the cause of truth, justice, and humanity shall in no way suffer at your hands. May the Lord watch over you. May He guide you. May He assist you in dispensing justice. May the people who appear before you believe that you have been fair and that you have listened to them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Lou. I think one tenet of being a judge is that you should use the gavel sparingly. I think a good judge rarely uses a gavel. Twice? Well, I'm going to use up one of those right now, ceremonial. I'm going to ask the fellow judges, our speakers, to stick around. We'll take some photos. Everybody else, I hope you can join Vanessa and I for a reception at Color Me Blue. May God bless each and every one of you every day. The Circuit Court of Audrain County en Banc is hereby adjourned.